Empty Epsilon scenario writing, simple statistics. In this video, we'll add some statistical information to the final screen of the scenario. To that end, we're going to create a stats table inside the init function. That's where we're going to keep track of all these statistics. In the setPlayer function, we'll add a couple of lines. The first one inserts a line into the stats table for every player ship that's created. We have a ship variable for the actual ship, and we have a Boolean whether it was destroyed or not. Then we're going to set a function, onDestruction, go to playerDestroyed and execute that. There's the playerDestroyed function. We'll loop through, find the matching ship, and set the destroyed Boolean whenever you get destroyed. Now, we also want to keep track of the enemy ships. So here we will insert one line for all the enemies with a count of how many enemies. We already knew that we created 6, so that's why we are setting it to 6 to begin with. In the bugThePlayer function, where we add more enemies, we will increment that counter so that we keep track of all the enemies that were created over the course of the scenario. So there's the loop, goes through, finds the item that says enemy, and then increments count by bug count. Let's go update our global message lines to include a new string, a new couple of lines after the current line that we have. So we'll just take that string.format, that \n parameter means go to a new line, and then the substitution parameter is going to take the results of a new function we'll define called final stats that will go onto the end of our current single line message at the end of the scenario. Let us now define the final stats function. So there's the outline of the function. I'm going to set 3 local variables, one to keep track of the number of players deployed, one to keep track of the number of players destroyed, and one to keep track of the number of enemies deployed. We'll set up a loop to go through our stats table. I is the index, S is the line in the stats table. If we say if s.kind is player, then we're dealing with the player stats. There's going to be multiples. We're going to count the number of ships deployed, player ships deployed. So we'll take that variable, we'll simply increment it by 1. Then we want to check if the Boolean destroyed is true or not. If it's true, then we want to increment the counter player ships destroyed. So that way we'll have a count of how many were deployed and how many were destroyed. And now to keep track of the enemies, we'll say if the kind is enemy, then we already have the total in there because we've been keeping count of it all through the scenario. So we'll just set enemies deployed equal to the count variable inside the stats line. This information is now going to be created in a string to be returned to the caller. I'm just going to copy and paste those lines from what I did earlier. We will have a string with 2 substitution parameters related to player ships, deployed and destroyed. There they are. Then we'll tack on the enemy ships line where we have the enemies deployed, and we included the previous line as well. Then we'll return that, and then our global messages in the update function will have these lines attached to it. And thus we have constructed our final screen with some simple statistics. So we're going to test, I want to test the simple scenario first so that we can see one of those lines that talks about just destroying the station. Now, I put 3 player ships out there because I want to show you some interesting things here. I'm selecting one, I'm deleting it. So one of those player ships has been deleted, which you would think that would count as on destruction, but it's not. Destruction is different than destroyed. I wanted to show you the differences there. Let's go look at the main screen, and we see the message, you took out the Craylor station. That was our only requirement, and destroyed is 3, deployed is 3, and destroyed is 0. Let's run the scenario again. We'll take the normal this time, so we have to take out the and there's 3 player ships. We have to take out the ships as well as the station. I'm also going to delete a player ship like I did before, but this time I'm going to stick a player ship right in the middle of all those enemies so that he can be destroyed instead of deleted, or he can hit the onDestruction path. Now, if you notice, the hull is now going down, where I'm just going to quickly take it down to 0, and he'll get destroyed by the enemies. We delete the enemy station, and now we delete the enemy ships. And let's see what our final screen looks like. There's the end of the scenario. Here's our final screen. What do we have? Station and ships destroyed. Deployed 3, destroyed 1.